Let us know if you can see and hear us. And it's Peter speaking right now. I've got Carlos here with me. We are just coming through a couple of technical out there, and let us know if you can see. There we go. All right. YouTube seems to have fired up.
Yep,
all right, Carlos, how do you want to do this morning then?
Well, I think I'm going to play the backup today, man. I'm going to do the news as we go through these, so I'll start pulling some of that stuff up since I am off my Mac today and my machine is not working properly. So I don't have Daytrading Pro on this Mac, unfortunately. So I'm a little bit handicapped today, but again, I'll just back you up on whatever news is out there. One of the things that is funny, we mentioned not yesterday, on Friday, we are talking about TVIX, so sometime last week about how it what will happen if it reaches zero. But I guess before that, it split. It did a reverse split, so it's not like a 50 or 60 or something. And I know Lee was talking about that was what's going to happen if that was the case. So interesting to see that. It's now at $60 on TVIX. So if you pull that up, you see a nice gap up under the reverse split that took place, I believe, this morning.
Yeah, look at that.
Interesting. Never seen anything like that on TVIX, so that's interesting to see.
First thing this morning, you're right, absolutely. It went from previous close of 6.25 up to 61.70, so it lost a little bit in the 10 for 1, but it definitely was 10 for 1 split. So there you go. All right, very interesting. Good. Well, then why don't we do that? We'll rely on you for news, Carlos. This will be interesting. A little role reversal going on this morning. We'll see how that goes. So if you're able to send me the announcements so that I can post them when the time comes, that would be helpful. You can do that, Carlos? I lost Carlos. All right. We lost Carlos. He'll be back. Maybe not, exactly. All right, let's take a look first, guys. International markets. Why don't we start there? So what does the morning look like? I haven't even done this myself. Let's figure it out together. So I like to start by looking at the futures. Let's see, we've got a little bit of mixed futures, right? I look at the top line here in FinViz. It helps give me an idea of where the global markets are going. Not a big movement one way or the other. So it looks like we've got a little bit of a mixed morning, but we'll see what the day brings. I was also noticing our gappers was fairly low this morning, so we still may be picking up the volume after the huge Thanksgiving Day holiday in the U.S., so we'll see what happens with that. If I take a quick look at the SPY this morning, let's see whether it's up or down. So it's up marginally, but not by much. You can see the previous day close, which is this dotted line on my chart, and we're essentially over it, consolidating in a little range. Those last couple of days, the markets really didn't go very far, which is what we expected. If you remember on Friday, we were saying lower volume. Shouldn't expect too much movement. We did have a couple of good trades, though. Looking back to Friday, we don't normally on a Monday go back over the previous week, but there was a couple things that I just wanted to point out because we had such a very, very small gappers list in the morning, but there was a few good things to trade. On Friday, Clvs continued its movement, and if you look at what it brought us on Friday, look at this good move up here that we had on CLVS. I know a couple people in the room, including one of our moderators, Thor, had a fantastic trade. He actually got it on the bounce way down here below VWAP, was able to ride it up from 1270-ish, if I recall, all the way up to $16. Fantastic trade. So really good day for him. There was also a few things out there that I know I was trading Baba. Baba was another thing, not on our gappers list per se in the pre-market, but once the market's opened, if I can type it in here, it was actually a good mover on Friday, so it gave us some good opportunities. Nice double bottom, good opportunity. I took it on the opening range of breakdown on this pullback. I got in right around 200, actually 199.98 was my entry. A little lower than I'd expected, but I was able to ride it down for $2, so they gave me a good move right off the open. So there's certainly, guys, even when we have a low gappers list in the morning, like we always say, we can take a look at our scanners, take a look at those things that have previously moved, moved, and there's always something out there to trade. So with that, why don't we get to our list, and we'll see what's happening. So let's start with ASLN. Now, ASLN, there's a few on here that I noticed are essentially low float. They're sort of at what I would call the high range of low float stocks, around 25 million shares or so. ASLN looks like its float is around 27 million shares. Did we get Carlos back yet? No, I've lost Carlos altogether. I took a look. I think they had some positive drug trials this morning, which is what is pushing this gap. It's up 84%. Previous close was at $3.84. So now they're trading at just around $7. That being said, let's take a look. So far, the action is not that great. There's some movement here. We've got 1 million shares traded, so it's definitely in play. But the daily chart is not giving me like a lot that I really love here. I'm going to leave it on my chart, but it's not looking that exciting for me. But we'll see. We'll see what happens here, and we'll move on to the next one. EVFM. EVFM is another gapper, up 22% on 190,000 shares. Another biotech company. I think they also had a positive drug trial. I didn't really... if you guys in the room happen to have information you can help me out with here, that would be very, very helpful. But I think it was also some drug trial news. And just a question, I see you guys asking about some of the arrows on my charts. For anyone, I use DAS, D-A-S, as my platform. In that, they've got a moving average pair study, and that's what I'm using here. So when you see this red arrow, for example, or this green arrow, what these are indicating is where I've paired the 9 and the 20 moving averages, and whenever they cross each other, that's when I get an arrow. So when the 9 crosses the 20 to the downside, I get a red arrow up here, and when the 9 crosses the 20 to the upside, I get a green arrow. So those are the arrows that you're seeing. Those are not my trades. All right, so EVFM looks even worse from a pre-market activity. Not very exciting right now, but we'll leave it on here to set some levels since we don't have a huge list so far. ORMP. Let's take a look at this. Another pharma company, up 15%. Now we're see the prices are getting lower. This one, it gapped up, but it's falling down all morning. Those are not ones I usually like to trade. They're my least favorite type of trades. I assume this is also some drug trial news. I tried to look for news, I know, earlier this morning. Didn't really find a lot on ORMP. Let me just take a peek here. 14 million share float, so, and I know they're working on some insulin pill for diabetes. I didn't see any update on it this morning, but somebody must have known something because the price jumped up and now it's falling back down. So it would be my least favorite to take a look at, but I will leave it there for now. CLVS. CLVS, like I just mentioned a few minutes ago, has been a steady mover. Look at this daily chart, guys. It's been great, moving up from $3 to $16. Obviously, there's some general bullishness on this. When we were looking at it last week, though, we have to keep in mind CLVS had a reported very high short float, 53%. I've got to believe by now that short float has been reduced with these constant short squeezes. But keep in mind that information can take up to 2 weeks to update. And as such, it's likely to be lower at this point. But we don't really know until it updates. I'm looking at FinViz as well as a backup. It does not have any indication of what the short float is. So we have to be cautious. This data is suspect because it also shows the institutional holdings at over 100%, which shouldn't really be possible. Those two pieces of data, by the way, guys, short float and institutional holdings, it's good as just a general guide, but you can't rely on it heavily because it's information that, unlike the rest, which is taken from firm market data, is actually taken from it's taken more from survey data of the institutions, and they have to report in how much they're holding short for themselves or for their customers, and then how much is large institutional holdings. So those numbers are only sort of generally accurate, and because of that method of data gathering, like I mentioned earlier, it's also delayed. So, and Helen, to your question, yeah, why don't I do that at the end if we have some time? I will certainly show you how to put that on. It's in the study config, and I'll show you how to add those arrows that I was just talking about a minute ago. So CLVS is a good trader. We'll certainly set some levels. We'll see if there's anything new. You can see I've got some for previous days. Looks like it may be worth watching again today as it's gapping once again. ATNX is the next thing on my gappers list. ATNX, 150,000 shares. It's, I'm not showing, this is interesting. I'm not showing much data at all on DAS, although my Trade Ideas scanner is showing that it's gapping down 2.3%. Daily chart's not bad. Carlos, is that you? I hear back with me again?
Yes, I am back. Yeah, so ATNX was very active 2 weeks ago. Had a beautiful pop, right? Kind of leaving that area of 12 on the daily here. Popped up, kind of held a bit. It looks like it might be coming down somewhat, but again, the daily chart looks very nice on this one.
Yeah, I do like the daily.
Look, I'm seeing the same thing you're seeing on the. I'm not seeing any action though on my charts here. So I'm looking at a different platform today because I don't got Dash Trader Pro up, but I don't see a lot moving in the pre-market at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not liking. We may keep it just to set some levels in case people are interested. Not right now. One of my favorites for watching today. What else we've got going on now? Let's take a look. Gapping down, we have Roku. So Roku has been on a tear going from around $100 back at the beginning of October up to 160, I don't know, almost 170, I think, at the high just 2 days ago. And I see we're back down around 150 and sinking. So I didn't see any specific news. Carlos, did you find any news on Roku that's driving this?
No, I haven't seen anything. There are some upgrades. Looks like some update from Morgan Stanley early this morning. They got some downgrades on it from Morgan Stanley. That's the only thing I'm seeing here. It's going from 100 to 110. So again, but we're way above that. I don't know how good that downgrade is with Roku, because Roku, if you look at the range on Roku, it's just been all over the place, right? We've seen people go, putting their target at 180, drops down to 110. Now it's back at 180. So it's something you got to take with a grain of salt, like you will say. You just don't know what to expect on it. But again, that's the news today. Downgrade on Morgan Stanley.
Okay. Well,
by Morgan Stanley.
Usually the downgrade doesn't drastically affect stocks, so it can have some impact. Morgan Stanley is a fairly influential, bank, so they will have some impact. But we'll see. Mm-hmm. Roku just moves a lot, as Carlos mentioned, guys. So the last, I would say, few weeks especially, it's been worth watching because you just never know what's going to do. Although I've found it a tough trade. It's not been kind to me, but doesn't mean it's not worth watching. So we'll keep it on the list. And last I've got on my gappers at this point is APA. Now, I do not like the look of this daily chart. APA is sort of just choppy here. It's down 10%, and the pre-market activity not looking great despite the 163,000 reported shares traded. I have not had a chance to look up any news. Can you save me on that one, Carlos? Do you know what's going on with APA?
Yeah, they have some new targets. I guess they're doing some offshore drilling or whatever the case may be. So they have some new targets that they released, but nothing's really significant on the news front. That's all I have this morning.
Okay. It's not, if it's a driller, those mining, oil and mining companies, I don't know, they just never seem to trade well. Often they're dual traded. I don't know in this case if it's dual traded, but where are they based? They're based in the U.S., but they just often don't trade intraday very well. So again, I'm not liking it. I'll leave it just because my list is relatively small, and it might help you guys set some levels, but it's unlikely to be something I will watch into the market. So with that as everything on my gappers list, we'll take a quick peek at what's happening on the NASDAQ active NASDAQ gainers, and we'll see if there's anything else that's on here of interesting. ONTX. It's a penny stock, not interesting at all. OCGN, also a 40-cent stock. Don't like that. ASLN, we already looked at. AKTX. Wow, this one actually is moving nice. I like the look of the pre-market on it. It's got over 1 million shares. It's not a high dollar stock, but something is popping this thing up. What is AKTX?
Yeah, and this is a former runner, too. We have traded this one in the past. when it has a great pre-market activity like this one, it tends to trade very well. So it is one we have looked at before.
Yeah, and if I look this morning, I'm not seeing any news this morning. I don't know if I'm just missing it, but something obviously, somebody knows something because it's up 45%.
Yeah, well, that's usually the case with this one. There's really no significant news sometimes. It's just one of those stocks that just gets going.
Well, here we go.
Um,
Our members are helping me out. Tim in the room says that they've got positive phase 3 trial of a stem cell transplant related drug, so or therapy. So that looks like
yeah, this will be this will be like the fifth time that
yeah.
they get something like that, and that's when we get these pops, right? So, so yeah, we're seeing that today for sure. Just be cautious, guys. It's one of those stocks that can drop very fast as it can go up as well, and we've seen this face approvals where again you get a pop, but if if it doesn't hold, it can come right back down. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, Carlos has got a point, guys. Take a look at some history here on AKTX. I mean, if I just go back, even this year alone, look at these candles popped up. Had one day where it held green. This day, obviously, it opened higher and then fell back down. And look at how many of these big red candles you've got where it's popped up from the open, but has
Yep.
fallen off during the day. So it seems to have a repeated pattern here. So we have to watch it for today. It could be that this is already the high, and it's just going to drop from it's just going to drop from here and head down. But it might be worth taking a look at. We'll see what happens. So I will put it on my list, and we'll go from there. All right, moving on then. Just to close it out, Roku, CLVS we already looked at. AMD is always here because it always gets volume. Not a great pre-market. It had been moving, but the last week and a half or though, look at this, guys. It's sort of just consolidating and arranged, sort of gone back to some of its bad habits, if you will, and not moving very well. So at this point, I don't see anything particularly to point me to wanting to trade AMD today. Last but not least, I'll take a look at Microsoft. It moved up to about its all-time highs, and it's sort of in a range now. Microsoft, again, not always a good mover. You have to get a very steady trend on it. So far today, I'm not seeing some strong pre-market, so not going to go on my list. All right, TVIX is here because of that 10-for-1 reverse split. It's artificially on this list, so we can ignore that. And I think everything else here we've already looked at, except for BIMI, but that pre-market doesn't look great to me, only 40,000 shares. So that looks like that's about it. Okay, so normally this is where we do our news to give you guys what's happening with Bear Bull Traders and the news that we've got. I don't have a news page for you this morning. Carlos, is something you can talk to, or am I just missing the note?
No, there's not a news page because Norm is usually the one that prepares that over the weekend. He does a great job putting that stuff together, and he's
Right.
actually traveling. But guys, as usual, the most important thing is definitely check our website for all kind of events that we have. Also, take note if you do want to try out our chat room. There's a lot of stuff that goes on besides the pre-market show the entire day. We have all the moderators filling in. Almost the entire day is filled up with a moderator speaking. We also have the new Squawk feature, which is amazing. So we're able to hear the Squawk radio, which I'm hearing a lot of great things about from people that have taken trace off that information there because it's so timely, right? It's probably one of the most timely news sources you can get out there. Benzinga does a great job of putting that stuff together. So try out the room, guys. This trial package that we have, you can definitely go to our website. Abby will post a link in a second. Try it out and see, if this is a fit for you. And then from there you can make your decision. Again, it's so important to be part of a community. I always talk about this. Trading alone by yourself could be so boring. You have to be with some communities so you can bounce ideas off each other and be able to stay sane, I guess, right? I couldn't picture trading alone without a community, so definitely check that out.
Indeed. One thing I'll mention, guys, is that about our meetups, one of the things we like to do is not only trade with you live here, but get together whenever we can. And in Toronto this past weekend, we had the opportunity to get together with some of our traders. This is just one picture I took off of my phone, but we had a professional photographer. We had over 35 people who showed up for our meetup in Toronto, and it was that was on Friday evening, and it was a lot of fun. So the next meetup we have is, I think, on the 14th of December in London, England. So Andrew will be there with his wife. he was meeting. We'll be meeting with the team, so it's fantastic when we get our traders together. We get to talk, and it's not only our existing members, as those who are considering trading, those who've been watching us for a while and want to get a feel for what we're really like as humans, as people, because this is a this is a very technical, solitary type business. It's good to meet with people and have a chat with traders and see how you fit, and people connect after these meetups all the time, and it's good. We've got a very strong group in Toronto, and it was great to have that meetup with them this past Friday. All right, so with that, guys, let's do some level setting. What time is it? I feel like we're running a little early here, but no, we're at 9 o'clock. So we're not bad on timing.
We're good. We're good.
Yeah. Let's take a look at some levels here, guys. So I'll start back at the top of my list with ASLN. Well, this thing, is this at all-time highs? Let's take a peek. It is not at all-time highs. So I go back in time to 2018, which seems to be, this must have been a fairly recent IPO. I don't seem to have any data really before May of 2018. This thing obviously IPO'd higher and then dropped. Wow, look at how bad this price action was back here. However, there's a clear level right around where the price action is right now at $7.20. I'm going to put a level there. I'm also going to put one just up here a little higher at 760-ish. There's no clear single point, but you can certainly see this range where it consolidated for a while before the price dropped. So after the IPO, it was clear that a lot of the stockholders had a view of the price around or just below $8. So that's something we should watch today to see if the price jumps back to that level. You can see, look at the pre-market, right? You can see it actually spiked right up to that $8 level before dropping off below it. So this looks like an area where we may see some price action today if this thing does take off more than the 89% it's already gone up. If it drops, well, obviously we've got yesterday's close that it could very well drop to, which is already marked in my chart at $3.82. And below that, we can see a consolidation area down here at under $2. That makes me nervous just saying that on this thing. So if it drops, guys, if it drops at all, I'd be out. I would not be watching this whatsoever. I just don't find it worth it. But I've already got, from the previous couple of days, I've got levels marked. I'm just going to leave those. I don't think I'm going to add to that because any level I set, I'm not seeing really a clear point at which I'd put it. So I will leave ASLN with those levels from the previous 2 days highs and lows, and then the ones around 720 and 760 that I've now got marked. EVFM is another one that's jumping up here. Same price range, incidentally, up into the $7-8 range. I see a level right here where it spiked on these 2 days at a high of 7.25. Yeah, 724 both days. So I'm going to make sure my level is exactly at $7.24. And then let's move back in time here to see what other levels we might have. Certainly an area here where it's bounced off of, I would say right around $8.30. So I'm going to put a level right there. And then, heck, if this thing really goes, I've got to mark the highs up here at around $12.90. So I don't know if it's realistic that this thing will get up there today, but those are the levels that I would put on this, and we'll see what happens. ORMP. Now, like I mentioned, this is one of those ones I don't like it when they jump up and then drop down pre-market. This indicates to me it could continue to drop throughout the day. And I notice I do not have any shares for short anyways. So if this thing just continues to drop, then frankly, it's a no trade. So not going to be on my primary list. However, if you're looking to trade it, I would certainly use the high of pre-market, which is already marked on my charts at $7.55. And then we got the low at $4.85, which sort of corresponds with the spike from the previous day, despite the fact it closed lower. More than that, notice how the high pre-market and the low pre-market are right in these consolidation areas, right? That you can see back here in April, May, June of 2018 for the high, and then the low in September, October of 2018. So those tell me that the high and low of pre-market so far sort of are good areas, and I will leave those. The only other thing I will mark is this high spike here at $8.59. Because if it does run, that's a place where we may see some hesitation on the price, but we'll see what happens. CLVS, as we've been mentioning, guys, has been on a run. Now, I happen to have had my daily chart expanded out. Look at this. Look how much it's dropped. So while I mentioned it's gone from what, $3 or something up to 16, it's fallen so much farther. This thing was $60 just a year ago. So it's got lots of room to go up if it chooses to run. So that's why I think we keep watching it. I've got some previous levels marked. In fact, let me just get rid of all of these lines and let's set some new ones. So I can see a low spike right here at 17.29. I'm going to mark that. I'm also going to mark right around here at $20 because it sort of consolidated after this gap down and then spiked back up to this level. So this acted as resistance, support, and then resistance. So that tells me that $20 level or so is significant. So I will put a marker there. Not suggesting we're going to get there today. Goodness only knows. But it's good to have that just in case. If it drops today, well, I've got the previous day highs and lows. You can see which are these red dotted lines on my chart also marked. I do like this area right in here, so I'm actually going to put another line here, about at 12.75, because I can see it bounced off of it twice, so that tells me that there might be some significance to that level, and we'll see if, well, hopefully it won't touch that today, but if it does, I'll be ready for it. All right, moving on to ATNX. This daily chart, so it popped up actually back on the 19th of November. It's then sort of been consolidating. So I really don't like the pre-market action. So not something I will trade, guys. However, I will just mark a couple of things. One, the high of this candle here at 16.75. I'll just put a marker there in case this thing does move. And I will put one right, I like sort of the low here, this sort of consolidation area. You can see it sort of had a low, 1360 is where I've got my level. Those are the only two I'm going to put on this. I said, unless it hits my scanners and comes back onto my scanners as a target, I'm not going to be trading ATNX today. Roku, I've got tons of levels marked on Roku because of the times that we've set them. You can see I've got some levels down here at 117 where it's gapped, and that's sort of the base of the gap. If you look back in time, notice this. It gapped up here back in August and to 117, and then when it dropped here in November, it hit almost exactly that same level. So to me, there's some significance in there because that is $30 below the current price, despite the fact this thing has dropped 13 bucks today. So I don't really expect it to get there. Closer to the price action, you can see I've already marked at 139.59, which is sort of the peak of this pattern. Also happens to coincide with this consolidation, and then I've got a mark of 150.80, again where it sort of came up through this point at the end of October, early November. So those are good levels for me that I will keep on my chart, as well as these other ones you can see. So wherever this thing goes, I am ready for Roku, and we'll see if it turns out to be a good mover today. Just because it moves pre-market doesn't necessarily mean it'll move during the day, especially on something like Roku where there isn't any significant news that's driving it. So we'll see what happens with it. So APA, as I said, I didn't like the pre-market chart. I'm not liking it so much now. It hasn't gotten much better, frankly. 245,000 shares, so it's got a little bit of volume. The low of pre-market here happens to be at 1977. It's a little bit below this consolidation, which I will mark here at $20.22. And where does this thing spike to? This candle here is a low of 1944, so I'm just going to put something there at 1944. Let me go back in time and see if I've got any lower levels. Is this an all-time low? That actually makes APA slightly more interesting if it's an all-time low. Whoops, getting too excited on my clicking. It does look like it, guys. Let me just go back here. Wait, maybe not. Maybe not. All right, so I've got to go back almost 20 years here in my charts, but back in 2001, so a little over 18 years ago, the stock price was lower. I don't know how relevant these levels will be, but what the heck, I will mark it anyways. This hit a low of 1871. That's not the year. That was the price it hit back in 2001. And then way down here at 1660. So we'll see if APA continues to drop. I do have some levels. Again, they're so old, they may not be relevant, but I'll just leave them on my chart and we'll see what happens with APA. And last thing we found off of the NASDAQ movers and gainers was AKTX. Again, I still like this pre-market move. It bounced twice off this high of pre-market at 307. I can see that it's tried a couple of times to break that unsuccessfully. Let's see if we can find on our daily chart why that level is significant. And here we get a clue. So here we go. Look. This was this level here, roughly at. I'll mark it here at $3. Looked like it was support when this thing had spiked up back in April of this year. Bounced back down off of $3. Tried to push up back to $5. Bounced down again before it came through the $3 mark and went lower. So I can see why it's hitting it now. So what was support is now a little bit of resistance as AKTX is pushing up this morning. So those are my levels, or the one level at $3 on it. If it goes higher, maybe I'll mark the high of this candle quickly here at $3.35. And then up here, there's nothing super clean, although I'll put something right here at 389. If this thing goes gangbusters, I mean, watch the whole dollars, right? Like, look at this. This candle happens to have peaked at $5.04, so essentially that's a $5 level. And then this candle, $9.20, so roughly $9. So it's obeying or listening to the whole dollar marks, which often these low float stocks do. So that's it for my list. Let's take a look at what else people have in your list. What else would you like me to take a look at this morning as we're getting ready for the day? In the room, somebody's asking why Roku. Just because it's a gapper this morning, and it's had actually some good steady pre-market activity. So we'll see what happens with it. The same thing with CLVS, but in the opposite direction. It's a steady mover. I just like them because of the way they're moving, and they've proven to be good traders, even though they haven't had specific news catalysts. So that's why I'm going to keep an eye on them. Somebody's recommending BABA. I surprised myself by trading BABA on 2 days yesterday, when normally I'm not very fond of BABA or a lot of the Chinese stocks, but it did trade well for me. This morning, 250,000 shares almost traded. No significant gap. It is sort of, it's pulled up and now it's in this consolidation range. I see it bounded essentially by the trading day here on the 27th of November, where it had a low of 197, a high of roughly 201. So we'll see. If today's bounded, I've already got those levels marked, you can see automatically with my previous day high and low. So if it goes outside of those bounds, you notice I happen to have some levels already marked at 195.72 and 201.40. So to me, that's going to set the range that frankly I would look for BABA to break out of for it to be a good trade for me. But we'll see what happens. The action could be good. I mean, on Friday, there was some good steady action that you could take advantage of where, it moved about $3, I think, and you could have taken advantage of that. And then the day before that, on Wednesday, right, our last trading day, it also had some good movement. So we'll see what happens with BABA. Somebody's recommending Peloton. It was coming up on our Squawk, and for those of you in the room, you're familiar with Squawk. It's something we've added recently where in addition to our Benzinga scanner, Squawk has been sort of verbally gives us clues as to what's happening in the market. It announces news and information. And if I go back here, you can see Squawk here on my Benzinga news scanner, and it allows me to hear the news. And they've been talking a lot about Peloton recently as it's been moving up. You can see here, while it's IPO'd and then was fairly disappointing, somewhere back at the beginning of November, people got a little bullish on it. And it's moved up from $22 up to its current $35, which is at an all-time high. The pre-market doesn't look fantastic, and the volume doesn't look great. However, I do like the daily chart. It might be worth it to keep an eye. If I hear or see Peloton coming up either on the Squawk or on my scanners here, I will certainly pay attention because it's been moving fairly well. I have never traded Peloton, but I'd certainly be willing to if it shows some good movement. You guys are suggesting Apple. Let's take a look at Apple. Whoops. AAPL. Why is my daily chart not populating here? That's just odd. see here. Suddenly I'm not getting daily information at all. Oh, I know why. Sorry, guys. Because I inadvertently typed it in the wrong chart. Here we go. Look at that. Apparently, if you use the tool properly, it'll work. All right, Apple's sort of been consolidating here at these all-time highs. I'm very impressed that Apple is even at these highs. However, being that it's at all-time high makes it interesting. I found it a tough stock to trade. Pre-market doesn't look great, but it might be worth keeping an eye on it. I don't know if there's any news today on Apple. Let me do a quick check here and see if there's any catalyst that may specifically drive it today. Some optimism about their new iPhone models. So no specific news. I think Apple's always going to be upgraded, downgraded, little bits of news out there, but unless there's a huge catalyst, it's you just have to sort of watch and see if it's going to move in the day. All right, maybe one last one that people are mentioning here. What else do I see here? ZS. I know that's one that Brian has traded before. ZS for my American friends. ZS. Pre-market looks absolutely horrendous. The daily sort of was looking good. The last few days, though, it's done nothing. Look at these tiny little candles, no movement, sort of stuck in a range here. I would say if it breaks over 52 and 3/4, 52.75, I might get interested in ZS for movement. Right now, not looking that exciting. So if it hits my scanners, I would take a look at it. Otherwise, I would probably pass on it myself. All right, so guys, for me this morning, that leaves, so that's everything I'll take a look at. So for me, my primary list is going to be Roku and CLVS. There's a couple of low floats here I might keep an eye on. The ones at the top list here on ASLN, although it's now starting to look ugly in its choppy action. ORMP, I will keep an eye on, although I mentioned I don't like it when it drops pre-market, so we'll just see what happens. And then the other one was, although it's much lower price than I normally like to trade, AKTX, I will keep an eye on. So that's what I will be looking at. Carlos, I see you're still on the mic, but I haven't heard you for a while, probably because I've been talking. Anything that you like I should look at?
No, it's no, you're doing great, man. I was just chatting with some people here on YouTube talking about a great question that came up was, why is all-time highs and all-time lows so interesting? And the reason for that, Joshua, is because usually when stocks get to those levels, there tends to be a lot of volume that comes in and a lot of activity. So that's what we love, right? We as retail traders, as momentum traders, looking for that volatility. When we get that volume, it helps us be able to catch some patterns. So in most cases, when you hit all-time highs, if it breaks above that, if anybody's short, they're going to cover. People are going to get long. It's going to create movement. If it doesn't break and it heads back down, then it also is going to create movement, right? People are going to jump in for sure. So that's why when we see those levels, all-time highs, all-time lows, we definitely want to keep an eye on that. Take a look at Apple. Every time Apple hits a new all-time high, you see that spike in volume, right? What's another one? Roku, when it was hitting all-time highs as well, was also spiking up nicely. So, when you have those levels, it's just nice to have another kind of, not a catalyst, but another indicator where you can have some momentum plays come in and be more active. So just wanted to answer that there.
Yeah, and that's a good question. I absolutely agree with Carlos. To support that, guys, one thing you have to remember, how we were just setting levels. When you get to these extreme areas, all-time highs and lows, you have no more levels because you're sort of above all of the previous price action. What that tends to mean is that either people get nervous or you can see momentum plays. So if they get excited, for instance, at all-time highs, momentum plays tend to continue farther sometimes than they otherwise would because there's no resistance to go against it. So because the sky's the limit, it could go at where could it stop? We've seen that many times before. The one that immediately jumps to mind is Beyond Meat. When I was looking at it and I had a fundamental perspective and Beyond Meat was trading at $35-40 and had been stuck in that area after its IPO, and I looked at it and it was having a strong day, and I said, just how far can it go? Well, we all know the answer to that now, right? It went up to like $180 or something. So things can run, and they can run to extreme levels. when they hit the all-time highs or lows even, right? Because then people panic, they start getting out of it, and things can drop farther than they might otherwise move. So that's why we like to keep an eye on them. All right. Well, that was it. Again, Carlos, from your side, nothing else or anything you would want us to look at that I haven't already mentioned?
No. I like the list that we have today. So again, that's what I'm going to go with as well.
I just realized on YouTube, I had my camera going, and you guys are looking at the back of my monitor for the last half hour. Let's see here. Let's pull this up. See if we can change the camera around. Maybe you guys can get a peek at something more interesting than the back of my monitor there. There we go. Sorry, that's my alarm telling me there's only 10 minutes left to the market open, so that's always good to know. And hello, everybody on YouTube. Okay.
Hey, Brian, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Brian. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm okay. I'm doing good. Hope everyone had a good weekend. A good long weekend for the Americans.
Yeah.
And even us traders in Canada got the day off. So there you go. Thursday.
We did, because it's you can't trade the Canadian markets quite the same way. So
Nah, not really.
Not really.
Not really.
All right. Well,
All right. So
I am ready with my list. As I said, there's a few good things on here. Brian, you always like to look at some interesting things. You noticed TVIX this morning had a 10-for-1 reverse split.
Yep. Yeah, people are asking about that in the room. Yeah, when I mentioned, actually, I talked about that, I think, a couple of days ago. I can't remember where, maybe in the room or on my video, but yeah, TVIX is trading up because if you owned 1,000 shares, what was the consolidation?
It was 10 for 1.
10?
Yeah.
Could be. Actually,
it was
probably
around
was
$6,
10.
and now it's up at
Yeah.
65. So.
Yeah. So on Friday, if you owned 1,000 shares, today you own 100. The price is now $6, so you haven't lost money, but you just own less shares now, and that's just what they do with these, especially these beta ETFs. They will, if they get too low in price or too high in price, they'll either issue more shares or reduce the number of shares by doing consolidation. Doesn't change the value generally, but anyway, let's just see what we're watching here. APA, looking at that. Is there some news on Apache? It's not a very nice looking chart.
Yeah, I can't remember now. Did I find news on Apache?
Yeah, we had some news on it. Let me go back. What was it?
Oh, yeah, somebody mentioned there was FDA approval on a treatment of theirs.
I don't think that's Apache, isn't it? Oh, okay. We're going to watch Beyond the Meat. At least I am.
I thought that was it. Maybe not. No, Apache. Oh, I'm completely wrong. That's wrong, because Apache's an oil and gas company.
Yeah, that's what I wondered.
That was the new drilling of 6,000 meters or so, a new target. I mean, I thought that was positive news, but they're gapping down. So
maybe it's because that's deeper than they expected to have to go, so that could be causing some issues.
Oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I'm thinking higher, the lower the better, but I guess not.
No.
Yeah. So what happened is, you're right. They had a target depth 6,200 meters. Upon reaching that, they've now set a new target depth of 6,900 meters. So they basically have to drill deeper to get the results they were looking for. So that's probably why it's gapping down now, because that's just extra cost before they hit oil, quite literally, and start getting making some money.
Right.
One of the things in our room, Thor has been on fire recently with some fantastic trades. He's mentioned that he's going to be watching some of the retail stocks today. It is Cyber Monday, and after the Friday, obviously the Black Friday deals, Walmart and Target on his list. I took a peek at them. They're not moving at all yet this morning. And it's early for results, sales results. They will not be released, but it may not stop people from pumping these. So it can't hurt to keep an eye on them. But I personally will just wait for them to jump up on my scanners.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. I've got my. list.
Okay. All right, guys. Look, well, that's it for the pre-market show. I think we're almost ready to go here. I've got to get my screen set up and everything ready. So thank you so much for joining us out there in YouTube. We'll see you back in the room in a second. If you're thinking about joining us, it's a great time. We do have a lifetime promotion going on our lifetime membership. For Black Friday, go to our website. You can get all the details. It's probably the biggest discount we've ever had. But if you're not sure yet, no pressure, guys. We want to make sure you join a room that's right for you. And we like to think we provide a great trading experience, but it's not always for everybody. You can join us just for a trial, and you can find that information on our website as well. And if you want to join just for a 1-week trial, it's very cheap. It just gives you an introduction, gives you a feel of what it's like to trade live with us all day, every day. So hopefully you'll join us in the room if you haven't already. And we will, if not, we will talk to you live here again tomorrow morning. Thanks, everybody on YouTube. Take care.